Welcome. In this set of videos, I'm going to walk you through the process of completing a data analysis project using Google Sheets. You are, of course, free to use any other type of spreadsheet or data visualization software that you feel comfortable with, but in my opinion, Google Sheets is a really easy way to accomplish both things very quickly. So in this series of tutorials, I'm going to spend some time walking you through how to use Google Sheets to edit, manipulate data, create charts that you can then display on other sites like WordPress. And we're also going to spend a bit of time exploring some sources of possible data like the American Fact Finder Census project. We'll spend some time looking at some NASDAQ stock market data, but other sources where you can go and get data that you can then bring into Google Sheets to then edit, manipulate, and visualize. Okay, so let's get started. First thing I'm going to do is once I've logged into Google Drive, I'm going to go ahead and just create a new Google Sheet for this project. So I'll go click New Sheet, open up a new Google Sheet, and then once that loads, I'm going to go ahead, we'll just title this Census Data. Okay, and so that's really all I'm going to do in Google Sheets for now. So I'm going to leave that open. And in another tab, I have open the American Fact Finder, which is a helpful collection of community statistics regarding demographics. So things like income levels, educational attainment, population, all really cool things that we can use to start to work with data. So obviously the URL is up here in this address bar, so factfinder.census.gov. If you Google American Fact Finder, you should be able to find it. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm just going to enter the zip code for Farmville, Virginia, which is 23901, and I'm going to click go. And so we can see that when that happens, that's going to generate us a number of different data sets all about the area that you entered here. And so we can see here on the left, we've got things like population, age, business industry, education, government, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here, and I recommend if you're doing any kind of project that focuses on a particular geographic area, the American Fact Finder project is going to be a great resource for you. So definitely spend some time looking at what types of data sets are available in here. But we'll just go ahead and pick one. So let's go ahead and pick business and industry. And then down here we can see under the American Community Survey Project, which is a part of the ongoing data collection by the Census Bureau. We've got a couple of different things. We've got occupation by sex and median earnings, and industry by sex and median earnings. And let's go ahead and we'll just for the sake of simplicity, choose this first one. What that's going to do is typically they're going to generate some sort of table for you. And so what I'm going to do to kind of get this stuff into Google Sheets is I'm actually just going to copy this whole table right here and come back over into Google Sheets and just select this top left cell in my Google Sheet and just click paste. And then that should give you something that's pretty workable. Obviously we can see that there's some errors in here because we were taking stuff from another thing and it's not necessarily calculating anymore. Let's also come back over here. So it looks like there's also a download button. So let's just see what that will allow us to do. So I'm kind of doing this as a way to show you all some of the pitfalls that you can stumble to as you're kind of going out and collecting data from the real world. So it looks like we can use this and we can merge annotations and data into a single file. So let's go ahead, and this looks like it'll somehow download for us, and we'll just give it a go, see what this looks like, because that may be easier than just copying and pasting. So we'll pop that open. It looks like that's going to open up a zip file. And then we've got a lot of CSVs. So go ahead and pop that open. All right, and that might not be necessarily useful, but so if somebody can figure out a way to get that into a useful format, that's cool. Share that out with the course. If not, it looks like copying and pasting. At least we know, hey, that's going to be an easy way to get things done. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, now that I've got this data into my spreadsheet, I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning it up. So let's hop back over here and let's actually look at the type of data that we have before we decide how we're going to visualize it. Okay, so here we've got what looks to be a couple of different things. So over here on this left-hand column, we've got a breakdown of the different types of occupations. And so at the top, we've got civilian employed population 16 years and over. So that looks to be like the total of all of the people. Then we have that then broken down by the percent male, the number male, percent male, number female, percent female. And then that continues on down the left-hand side to break down by industry. And it looks like we have some large categories, so like management, business, science, arts, and occupation. We've got service occupations, and under each one of these things, we've got a lot of subcategories. So that's kind of cool because it gives us a lot of data to work with, but we're going to want to make some decisions about how to visualize this. So if I'm looking at this and I've got a couple of different large buckets and then a bunch of different smaller buckets inside of it, what I'm thinking about ways to do is to simplify the data that I'm going to present to my audience. So one of the things I'm looking at right here is, we might be able to just simplify this and eliminate all of the subcategories and just go with our top level category. And that would just kind of give us a large overview of what this area seems to be employed doing. So we'll hop back over to our spreadsheet and we're going to kind of flip between our two screens for a second. So here we can see we've got our total, we've got management, business, science, and arts occupations, and then it looks like everything from there are subcategories down until service occupations. So I'm going to hop back over to Google Sheets. I'm going to go ahead and highlight. I'll do this. So I'm just going to shift and then click down, select those rows. Okay, so let's stop this. All right, so let's try this one more time. So what we need to do is we need to actually be selecting the row itself so we can see that that whole row is highlighted and not just this cell, which I was doing at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down, shift, click at the top, come all the way down here, and then click at the bottom, and then that should highlight all of the rows. Then I'm just going to right click, then I'm going to look for delete rows 6 to 20. We'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll hop back over here and just make sure as we're cleaning our data, everything is still good. So now we're down to service occupations, which goes down to sales and office occupations. So we'll keep service occupations. Again, shift, click at the top. Then down here, we'll go ahead and delete those rows. We've got sales and office related. Okay, it looks like we've got 2 under there. There's subcategories of sales and office related. Delete those rows. And I think I'm just going to make some educated guesses about which ones can go here. Okay. All right, so very cool. Now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to come out, just because this bothers me to look at. We don't necessarily need this margin of error stuff. And so since we don't need it, I'm actually just going to come and delete it so that our data looks, it's just nicer to look at, easier to work with. And as I do, I'm going to kind of go through and collapse some of these columns just so we can see everything on one screen. Go ahead and trash this stuff too. Okay, so very cool. Now we've got a decently clean data set to work from. And what we'll do now that we've got this set up is we'll go ahead and turn this data into a chart. So tables are really helpful for organizing data, but they're not very helpful for helping us make inferences from that data about a particular situation. So we're going to want to visualize that in some way so that we can communicate and talk about it with other people. And to do that, the most likely candidate is a chart of some kind, and Google Sheets has a built-in charting service. And so what we'll do is, I think probably hidden over here in this More button, so you have the option to insert a chart. So I'm going to hover over that, click the button to insert a chart, and then that should actually dump one onto our Google Sheet for us. Okay, and so the cool thing about working with Google Sheets is that it's smart enough to look at the data that you have selected in the spreadsheet and try and make some best guesses about ways that we could visualize that data that makes sense. Now, I'm not necessarily sure that what they've suggested with this line chart kind of does, so we're going to want to go and make some edits. So once we've got the chart deployed onto our Google Sheet, we can click up on the right-hand side. We should be able to edit the chart, and this will give us the ability to change the chart type, specify the data that it's pulling into it, and then control things like the colors of the labels and so on and so forth. So first of all, let's go ahead and change the chart type, since I'm not sure a line chart is really our best bet here. So I think what we're really trying to do, there's two things that we can do with this data set. So we have kind of a total population, so 7,000 of people who are of working age, and then we have a breakdown of the different kind of subgroups of occupations that they have in this area. So there are two ways that we can look at this. So we can look at this as a part of a whole. So we have this whole of 7,000 people, and we can look at how that breaks down into different parts. Oops, I deleted a number there. So we can look at that, how that breaks down into different parts, which is going to suggest one type of chart. Or we can look at how those different categories stack up against each other, not necessarily comparing them as parts of a whole. So we'll take a look at how to do both of these. And so the first one that we would do if we were looking at a part-whole relationship is a type of chart that you're all probably familiar with called a pie chart. So we'll come down here and we'll go ahead and select a pie chart. And then what we'll do with our data range is go ahead and typically what we can do is if we just kind of select a data range and then we try and edit, sometimes it'll let us do that. And okay, so let's take out this stuff. Let's remove this so we can come in, select a range. All right, okay. And so that looks like it's gone ahead and imported all of our data in there. Let's go ahead and see if we can make any estimates on that. And so that looks about right to me. We've got pretty, 2 or 3 kind of largish categories. And then after that, everything seems to get pretty small. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like we're missing some stuff here. Okay, and so I'm going to do a couple things first before we get started. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to start to kind of clean up some of this stuff to make it a little bit easier to work with. Okay, so we'll go ahead and select a pie chart. And then there we go. That should be representing all of our values. So we're going to want to actually come through here. It looks like it's pulling in this total, which we don't necessarily want for this because the whole is representing, all the different parts are representing that. So we're actually going to change this and reference this to B2 through B9. And that should take out that largest chunk. Okay, so what we're going to want to do now are add some labels, and we can do that by the same way. So select the range that we want to use as labels. So we'll come into here, select A2 to A9, click OK, and then we can see, all right, boom, that's gone and added labels to our pie chart. And so from here, all right, this is good, but we're going to want to clean this up just a little bit and try and make it a little bit more user-friendly because we see we have all these different pieces here, but not necessarily in a reader-friendly fashion. So we'll come over here, open up the chart style. We've got chart and axis titles, then we've got a legend. So we're going to want to say, instead of having these individually be labeled, let's try throwing a legend on there, which is a little bit more helpful. Say top, bottom, we'll just try out left. That actually probably looks the best. in my mind. So left justified legend. And let's see what else we can do. See if we can have chart and axis titles, pie chart. Okay, and here's where we could change the different colors of all of the different pie sections if we wanted to. But we'll just go ahead and leave that where it is. I was looking for hopefully a way we could get those percentages back on there, but the nice thing about Google Charts is that it's interactive, and so if you actually hover over any of this stuff, it'll show you there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and close that out. So we've got one chart made. We've got our pie chart right here. But we're gonna go ahead and we'll add one more chart type, because I said, again, there's two ways to really kind of start to compare this data. The first way was as a part of a whole. The second way is to really compare the ones against each other. Okay, so we'll go pop back up here, insert another chart, and I'm just going to drag this one over to the left, and then just scroll over here, and we'll go ahead and change this from line chart, and we'll go ahead and snag this column or bar chart. And really, these are pretty much the same thing, just aligned differently. So we've got a column chart here, which goes from the bottom to the top, or a bar chart, which goes from the left to the right. So we'll go ahead and let's try the bar chart. And from here, we've got a data range, so we'll go ahead and pop that in there. And we know that this is B2 through B9. Go ahead and say OK. And then we'll go ahead and let's see if we can get some headers in here. Let's add a y-axis. This is going to be our labels. Okay, cool. And so that boom pops in there, and so you can see that again it's the same data, but we're comparing it in two different ways, and it's used for two different purposes. So if we're looking at this problem and saying, okay, well, we have a total population of 7,000 people. Let's see how on average those 7,000 people are spending their time. Okay, well, we can look at that relationship in one way. But again, if we want to look at it from a different light and say, okay, well, we want to see, which is the highest category, which is the lowest category, and kind of visualize those relationships, this chart is going to be better for that particular example. And so again, with this chart, we can come in here and we can customize it just a little bit and see what options we have here. So we could add a title, and I would typically recommend adding a title. So let's hop back over here and see what we're analyzing. So we're looking at occupation for 23901 for zip code 23901. Cool. So we'll just copy that, pop that over. Again, remember to label this chart. Make it easier for people to kind of understand what the chart itself is about. Let's see what other options we have on this bar chart. So we have this legend. See if we can do that. I don't know that we necessarily need a legend for this since we've got these labels over here on the left. But it looks like we could change font size if we wanted to. Change some of the grid lines. So there's a lot of customization options if you wanted to theme your charts if you were into that sort of thing. So a lot of cool things you can do to extend this Google Sheets charting application. Okay, so cool. So we've got two charts that are ready for display. So let's talk about some ways that we can share those with the outside world. Obviously, we have the ability with Google Drive to share spreadsheets, but we can also share out different types of these charts in two different fashions. And we'll see which one WordPress really digs. So if we choose to publish chart, we can have a link to the interactive chart. Let's see what that looks like. So we'll go ahead and publish this, publish it as an interactive chart. And it'll ask, are you sure you want to do this? And then it'll generate us a link. So if we open that up and then we open up a different browser, should be able to click OK. And then we go to that and then we can interact with it, and it's all interactive and really cool. So that's one option we have. The second option is an embed chart. And so we'll go ahead and copy this. Now I'm going to hop back over here to WordPress. I'm going to go ahead and add a new post call this Google Charts, and we'll see if this will let us display the embed content. So we'll come over here, hop over into text, paste that iframe in there, and then I'm just going to hit publish, and we'll see whether or not this will render. So this is 50-50. Okay, it looks like that's stripping it out, and that's fine. WordPress will tend to do that sometimes, but there are other ways that we can go ahead and publish these charts. So I'm going to go ahead and exit that, and we should be able to, from here, save an image of the chart. So if we wanted to then hop back into our WordPress post, we can get it into our blog that way. Hop back over to the visual editor, go ahead and just drop that image in there, give it a title. Okay, then maybe we want to scale that up just a little bit. Go ahead and update. And then we can see that reflected on the other side. Now there's one thing to notice is that when we do that and we publish through an image, we obviously lose the interactivity that we had with the last example. So that's one thing to note, is if you are going to use these as static images, make sure that everything is labeled appropriately. So like this one, yeah, we can kind of get general relationships, but we can't tell exact percentages. So that's definitely one thing to think about. Okay, so that's going to end video 1. I'm going to pick back up in the next video and talk about a couple of different types of data that you can go and gather and a couple of other methods of visualizing it using Google Sheets.